Hello and welcome to the Tech Train. In today's video I'm going to cover using the Shape Merge tool to create custom shapes and combining animation effects to create this looping PowerPoint template. So let's get started. So the first step is to create a single blade of grass. I'm going to do that by creating an oval shape like this, somewhere there, and then holding down the Control key, I'm going to drag and drop a copy of that and move it around here, and then holding down Control again, drag and drop another copy of the oval around here. The reason I'm doing this is I'm looking at this shape here that's left. So this sort of curved shape here, which is going to be our single blade of grass. I'm going to hold Control and use the wheel on my mouse just to zoom out slightly so I can see all of that. And using Control A, I'm going to select all three of those circles. Now at the top in the Shape Format menu, I'm going to come onto the left here and it says Merge Shapes. I'm going to click on that menu and then I'm going to choose Fragment. What this does is it breaks apart anything that's overlapping. So all of these parts of these circles or ovals are now individual separate shapes. In fact, the only one we want is this one here. So I'm going to select all the others and get rid of them. So here we have our single blade of grass. I'll zoom back in again now. And we can now change the outline. I'm going to have no outline, and shape fill, I'm going to choose a green color for the grass. So once we've created a single blade of grass, the next step is to start creating little variations of that grass. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to just rotate that around slightly like that, and then I'm going to hold Control down and just drag and drop a few copies. I'm going to have about 6 blades of grass in total. And then each of these blades of grass I want slightly different, so I can make that one slightly bigger and change the color. So I'm going to go into more fill colors and just make that one a little darker. This one here, I'm going to change the rotation of it perhaps, and again go into more fill colors, we'll make that a little bit darker still. This one over here, we'll make this a little bit larger and rotate that round, and we'll make this one a bit lighter, like that. So you're not making massive variations, but just a little bit to create a bit of depth to the grass as a whole. And then this one here, let's rotate that one, make that a little bit bigger. And then we'll change this. Rather than making it darker or lighter, let's make this one a slightly more blue color perhaps, like that. So there we are, we've now got our 6 individual blades of grass. So the next step will be to animate them. So now we have our blades of grass, let's animate just this first one here. The others I'll just move out of the way slightly so that we can see that easier. Right, so we're going to add 2 animations, one to wave the grass left and right, and the other to make it grow and shrink as though it's coming towards us and then blowing away from us. So how do we do that? With this one blade of grass selected, we're going to go up to the Animations tab at the top and then click on Add Animation. And the first one we're going to do is the spin in the emphasis section, the yellow section. So we're going to add a spin animation. Don't worry about the fact that it's spinning all the way around at the moment. We're going to change that in a second. And then clicking on that grass to make sure it's selected, we're going to go back into animation and add grow or shrink. So once we've done that, we need to just edit those 2 animations because they're obviously not quite right at the moment. So again, with this grass selected, let's click the animation pane to open up this panel on the right hand side. And we can see we've got the 2 animations. The first one is the spin. So let's double click that and just make a few changes. You can see at the moment we've got 360 degrees. That's why it's spinning all the way around. We don't really want that. So let's change that to about 15 degrees. We're also going to make sure that it has a smooth start, so it's not instantly moving, it's sort of swaying gently. So we're going to add a smooth start of 1 second, a smooth end of 1 second, and we're also going to click this box that says auto reverse. So once it's swung 15 degrees clockwise, it's then going to swing 15 degrees anti-clockwise, so it's back where it started. We're also going to click in the timing section and change two things here. First of all, the on click. We don't want the animation to start when we click the mouse. We want it to start straight away when the slide loads. So we're going to click with previous. And then the duration is something else that we're going to change in a minute. We're going to change this for the moment to 1.7, like that. And then one other thing we need to just do, if I just click that again, double click on that first animation to go back into these settings. In the timing section, we also want to make sure that the repeat is set to end of slide, so that it'll continue to swing backwards and forwards until we move on to the next slide. So there we are, that's all the changes to that animation. Click OK, we'll get a little preview, and that looks fine. And now we're going to click on the second animation, that's the grow or shrink animation. So we'll double click that to bring up the properties. And here we're going to just change the size down from 150 to probably about 110%. You can obviously play with these figures, play around with the numbers, not set in stone, so have a look, see what it looks like to you. And again, we're going to have a smooth start of 1 second, a smooth end of 1 second, so the animation doesn't start and finish too abruptly. And again, we want to tick this box that says auto reverse. In the timing, again, we're going to change it from on click to with previous, so it starts as soon as the slide loads. And of course, we're going to repeat it until the end of the slide. Duration, I'm going to keep that at 2 seconds for the moment. I'm not so worried about changing that one. Okay, so once we've done that, we can click OK. And if we have a look at this slide now, loaded up, you can see that that blade of grass is swinging left and right. It's growing and shrinking. So we've got a little bit of movement going on. Doesn't look terribly natural at the moment, but of course that's just one single blade of grass, and it seems to be hovering in air as well. So we're going to change that in a minute. So the next thing we need to do is to make sure that all of these 6 blades of grass have those 2 animations. But don't worry, we don't have to click on each individual blade of grass and then do all those changes. We can simply copy and paste the animations from this first blade of grass. To do that, we simply click on this first blade of grass, and making sure we're in the Animations tab at the top, we're going to click this option here that says Animation Painter. Click that one, and when we move back onto the slide, you'll see your mouse now has a little paintbrush to it. Simply make sure that you move your mouse over the second blade of grass and click. And now that second blade of grass has the same animations as the first one. Both of them have been copied across. If we open up the animation pane, you can see we now have another 2 animations. And we're going to do the same thing now with this second blade of grass still selected. Click Animation Painter, click the third blade of grass. Click it, Animation Painter, click on the fourth. Click it, Animation Painter, click on the fifth, and then again for the sixth. So now we have all 6 of our blades of grass animated, but the problem is they're all swinging at exactly the same rate and exactly the same speed, which again isn't quite right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to just change those timings slightly for each individual blade of grass. So I'm going to open up the animation pane, and we know that these animations are in pairs. So the first animation is the spin, then we've got grow, spin, grow, spin, grow, spin, grow, all the way through. We're not going to edit the grows, although again, do feel free to experiment with that if you want to. But for this, I'm just going to change all of the spins. Now, the first spin, you'll remember I set the timing of that in the timing section as 1.7 seconds. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change that for each blade of grass. So to do that, all I need to do is I'm clicking on the first animation at the moment, so I'm going to go to the third animation, which will be the spin for the next blade of grass. Double click it, and I'm going to change the timing from 1.7 to 1.8. Then I'm going to skip the grow, go on to the next animation, which will be another spin, change the timing from 1.7 to 1.9. So what I'm doing is I'm going up by 0.1 of a second for each blade of grass. So that's 2 seconds now. And then we're going to change that to 2.1. and then finally 2.2. So that means each individual blade of grass, as we move from left to right, is moving slightly faster than the others. This means that they're slightly out of sync, so you'll end up with a bit of a wave going on, which just looks a little bit more natural than all of them being exactly the same. Okay, we're done with the animation pane for now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring these blades of grass a little bit closer together so that they're slightly overlapping. And again, here I might decide just to change the rotation of these. Doesn't matter that they're exactly lined up at the bottom, but just very roughly. So again, we can just change the angle of some of those. And you could even make them a little bit bigger again if you want to. That's fine, something like that. So they're overlapped as a group. I'm going to zoom out. Again, I'm using the control key and the wheel on my mouse, which is a little bit easier than using this bar at the bottom right corner, which you can use instead if you prefer, or if you don't have a wheel on your mouse. And I'm going to now drag a frame around all of those 6 blades of grass, and I'm going to now change the size of all of them, because of course they're very big at the moment. We don't need them that size. So with all of them selected, I'm going to hold the shift key down, so all I'm doing is changing the size, I'm not twisting them, and I'm going to bring those down to about the right size, somewhere like that. Now they have moved apart, so let's just bring these back together again a little bit. There we go. And what I'm going to do now is just move them so that the bottom of the grass is slightly over the bottom of the slide. So something like that. That means that those sort of untidy bottom lines there won't be visible on the slides. If I play that now, you'll see that the grass is just sticking up above the bottom of the slide like that. And once I've got those in position, again, I can draw a frame across that, hold Control down and drag and drop to make a copy of them. Let go of Control so I can move that into position, and then again hold down Control, drag and drop, let go of Control, move those down, and again you can move them slightly higher if you want to. Control, drag and drop, let go of Control, move them there. Maybe this will be slightly lower. And of course, if you want even more randomization, then do feel free to change the order of the blades of grass. So shuffle these around. They don't have to be in the same order all the way along. I'm simply doing this in possibly the fastest way possible, but by all means, you know, feel free to customize it. Now I've not probably got enough room on this bottom right corner for all 6 of them, so I'm just going to select 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 of those blades of grass. Control, click to drag them, move them around here and pop them there. There we are. So if I press F5 now to run my presentation, you can see we've now got these blades of grass along the bottom. And what I'm checking is to make sure that none of the bottom edges of the grass are showing above the bottom of the slide, and that looks fine. So there we are. In just a few minutes, we've got this field of waving grass on the bottom of our slide. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add in the sky, and then we'll add some clouds. This is where we're going to use the merge tool again to create some customized clouds and then animate them. So let's now add the sky and background, and to do this there are a couple of different methods. I'm going to show you both so you can choose which you prefer. The first method is to right click on the slide somewhere and choose Format Background. On the panel on the right we're going to choose Gradient Fill, and then we're going to make sure that we have just a couple of tabs here. If you have another tab like this one here, you can simply click it and drag down to remove it. The tab on the left, I'm going to have that as, well, we'll keep that as a blue sky. But actually, no, there's one on the right that's blue, isn't it? So let's keep that as a blue sky. And the one on the left, let's change that to a green grass colour. I'll make it slightly paler than the grass we've already got. Now, obviously, the green is at the top, blue is at the bottom, so let's swap those around. And we also need to make sure that our gradient is in the direction there going from top to bottom or bottom to top, so it's not going left to right or diagonal, so making sure it's in that direction. There we are. So we've now got the grass and the sky, but of course they're blending into each other, which doesn't look very natural. So to change that, we can just simply drag these two tabs further together, and the closer they are, the more definite or hard that joining line is. You can see as we get closer and closer together, they get more and more defined. Now, of course, if it's in the distance, it might be slightly out of focus, so you might not want it to be exactly sharp. So something like that might be absolutely fine. And then if you want the horizon level to be a bit lower, or just simply drag the green further to the right, and then bring the blue up to it so that that horizon line is a bit lower. So that's one method that you can use. Another method that you can use, of course, is to simply use rectangles. So I could draw a rectangle here, and we're going to shape outline. We'll have no outline. We'll have this as our grass, and you could either have a solid color here, or again, if you wanted to, you could add a gradient and then have two different colors. So let's have a gradient that goes from a dark green to a lighter green, like that. Make sure our direction is vertical. And then, of course, this would need to be behind our grass. So we can simply right click on this, send to back, and then that will be behind our grass. We'll bring that down so it's aligned with the bottom of the slide, and then that will be our grass background, and then you could do the same for the sky. So either of these two methods is fine. I'll leave my background as the other one I did first, so leave that as it is. And now it's time to add in our clouds. Now to do this, we're going to simply create a circle, and I want this to be a perfect circle. When you draw normally, you'll see that it can be any kind of oval shape. If you hold down the Shift key though, it will snap it to be a circle. And I'm going to have a circle about that size. I'll zoom in slightly so you can see this a bit more clearly. So there's my first circle. I want to fill this with white and change the outline to no outline. Now once I've got one circle, what I'm going to do is hold the Control key down so I can drag and drop copies of this circle, and all I'm doing is creating the classic sort of cloud that we all drew when we were children, something like that, and then come along here to create the bottom part of the cloud. So then we've created that sort of classic cloud shape. Now once we've got that whole cloud, of course it is all separate circles, and that's not going to be quite so helpful for us. So we'll select the whole of that by clicking and dragging across all of them. In the Shape Format menu, we're going to go back over to the Merge Shapes tool, and this time, instead of using Fragment, which will break it up completely, we're going to choose Union. And what Union does is it combines all of those separate individual circles into one custom shape. So this is now a cloud shape. And once we've got this one cloud shape, we can also add in a gradient fill to this. So let's go into the Shape Fill, into Gradient, and we'll click More Gradients at the bottom so we can customize it. By default, it's just brought up the last gradient that we had, so not to worry about that. And what I'm going to do is the top color, I'll have that as white still, but the bottom color, I'm going to set that to a slight grey color, because clouds do have a slight grey on the bottom of them. They're lighter on the top, obviously, because the sun is shining on top of them rather than from underneath. And once we've got that one cloud done there, I'll zoom back out a little bit now, and we can add in, we could add as many clouds as you want, but I'm going to copy and, hold down Control rather and drag, create a second cloud. Now of course if you wanted to, you could draw a separate cloud out in the same way, so it's completely different. For the purpose of this video, I'll just simply have two clouds that are the same, although I might just make that one slightly smaller and maybe slightly more elongated. There we are. And yeah, we'll leave it like that. Well, perhaps what I could do as well is I could rotate it or flip it horizontal so it's the other way around, looks slightly different. There we are, that'll do. So I have my two clouds. So now we've got two clouds, the final step is to animate our two clouds. So let's animate them. So let's animate this cloud then. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the cloud to make sure it's selected. I'm going to go into the Animations tab and then click Add Animation. And we're going to come right down to the bottom where it says Motion Paths and click on Lines. Once we click on Lines, we'll see a rather odd cloud movement. Very heavy rain in one location, I suppose. And then once we've done that, you'll see that you kind of have two clouds, one slightly faded out, and a green dot and a red dot. That shows where it's starting and where it's finishing. And both are wrong at the moment. So let's click on this cloud first of all and move it off to the left so it's not actually visible once the slide begins. Next, you'll see that this arrow has this green arrow and a red arrow. Click on the red arrow, which is where it's going to end up. And then once you've clicked on it, you'll see it changes into a little red circle. And when you put your mouse over that red circle, you get a little sort of arrow, black arrow pointing in two directions. We can now click that and drag it. And you'll see, I don't know whether you can see on here, but there's a connecting line between the two clouds. And I'm going to try and keep this level. Let's see if I use the line as a gauge there. There we are. It kind of snaps. I don't know whether you can quite see that on the screen there. But that's now on the right-hand side. So I have the cloud on the left-hand side with a green circle, cloud on the right-hand side with a red circle. And if I press F5 and run, you'll see that what will happen. Oh, of course, I've not changed the animation start. Let's just do that as well. Go into animation pane, and right at the bottom we've got the freeform there. We can double click that, and in the timing we'll change that from on click to with previous. Now there's obviously going to be another change that we're going to make, because as you can see at the moment it is a gale force wind. The cloud goes across very, very fast indeed, and just the once. So we need to change the speed of that cloud and also make sure that it repeats. So similar to what we did with the grass, we're going to double click that animation there. We're going to make sure that smooth start's not important because it's actually off the left side, so it doesn't really matter. So we'll change that down to 0. Smooth end the same. We don't need auto reverse because otherwise the cloud will go backwards. So it'll skid from left to right and then suddenly skid from right to left. So we don't want that. But in timing, we need to change the duration. So I'm going to change that to, let's say, about 15 seconds. I'd probably want it a little bit more than that in reality, but again, I want this to be fairly quick for the for the video. And what we need to do here underneath is when we've got repeat, we'll have repeat until end of slide, like that. And that will mean that our cloud will come along from the left. So, yep, I mean, again, in terms of speed, you might want that a little bit slower, but not a problem. Once that cloud moves off to the right-hand side, we should have a slight delay, and then it will start coming in on the left again. Okay. Now, once we've done that, we can copy and paste that animation onto the second cloud here. So let's click on that first cloud on the left, click Animation Painter, and then click on our second little cloud there. There we go. And again, what I'm going to do is move this cloud off, but I don't want both clouds appearing at exactly the same time. I want there to be a little bit of variation. So I'm just zooming out quite a bit here. I hope you can see all right. And I'm going to click this cloud and drag it further off to the left, like that. So it will appear slightly after the first cloud. And then I'm going to click on this red arrow and then wait for it to turn into a red circle, and then drag this so it's further off to the right than the other one as well. So this cloud will have longer to travel, but it's traveling at the same speed, which means that you won't end up with both clouds moving across the screen at exactly the same time. Sometimes one will actually overlap or overtake the other, so it's a bit more natural, I suppose. So once we've done that, let's now run our presentation. And we have the grass waving, and there we've got our clouds, again moving a little bit quick. We can see how the bottom one there is actually overtaking the first one because it has further to go but in the same time. And then once those disappear off to the right, we'll end up in a second with clouds going back on again. And there we are. So we've now got our animated grass and our animated clouds. And you can play around with this idea, obviously, with creating the merge the merge shapes tools, that you can create your own custom shapes, and using these different animations. So I hope that you found that fun, and I hope you enjoy creating your own PowerPoint template. If you have any questions or comments, do please leave them below. I do always read every comment, and I try and reply to as many as I possibly can. But if you have any comments or questions, do please get involved in the conversation below. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, then please do so, as you'll be the first to know when new content hits, and of course the notification bell will also make sure you're notified when new content appears. If you liked the video, finally, don't forget to click that like button. That would be really appreciated, really helps the channel, so thank you for that, and thank you for watching. So, before you go, hit the like button, leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.